What it means to be a South African woman. When you think of the expectations of a woman, think of the very first things that pop up in your mind. It can be anything. Come on. What do you expect from a girlfriend, your wife, or your partner? It's not gender specific, it can mean or be anything if you'd like. Perhaps you're more on the liberal approach, or perhaps you're more conservative. Now, let's unpack this, shall we? I'm Rainy Day Lily, and I am a South African woman. And I don't normally talk about this type of content on my YouTube channel, as I try not to bring in the politics of it all onto my channel. But because I am a South African woman, I realize that this issue affects me and has always affected me throughout my whole life. And it's kind of shaped me to be who I am today. In South Africa, girlhood begins softly. In pink plastic teacups, schoolyard secrets, and the gentle world a child builds for herself, but even then, the rules wait for her. Through primary socialization, she learns what it means to be a girl. To be kind, to help, to be careful, to make space for others before herself. She is praised for being patient, expected to be accommodating, and taught to be respectful in a way that is rarely demanded of boys. These are the early seeds of gender roles. The idea that she must someday be the nurturer, the emotional caretaker, and the one who holds the family together. As she grows into womanhood, these expectations harden. She becomes the one who is expected to clean, to cook, to care for children, to manage the home while still excelling in her job. The dual burden that so many South African women have to carry. I mean, we see this all the time at family events. How often do you see a woman in the kitchen in the mid chugging down a beer or umqombothi? Check again this Christmas time and see the dynamic unfold before your very eyes. She is expected to be strong yet gentle, independent but never intimidating. Successful but never too loud about it. Sociology calls it a patriarchal role allocation. The way society quietly assigns her responsibilities through gender schema theory, these differences get internalized until she begins to believe this is simply who she is. And social learning theory reminds us that she watches men and learns what they expect of her: obedience, softness, forgiveness, resilience without complaint. Perhaps one of the more common depictions can come in the form of gender expectations and consequently the presence of stereotyping and prejudice against women taking place and shape. Most notably can be seen in the way that we talk about women on dating shows, the way we discuss women's bodies, and most of the time, they're not even women to begin with. Womanhood in South Africa has never been simple. It's been shaped, bruised, and rebuilt across centuries. A story of survival, silence, and strength. When colonialism arrived, it didn't just take land, it reshaped culture. It redefined gender roles, turned communal power into hierarchy, and forced women into spaces of servitude. African women who once held respected roles as farmers, healers, and leaders were pushed to the margins. The labor became invisible, their power rewritten. Then came the apartheid era, a system built to divide and dehumanize. For women, it meant double oppression by race and by gender. They worked in they worked in homes far from their own, raising other people's children while missing their own. They endured poverty, violence, and exile, yet somehow they found ways to fight back. In 1956, 20,000 women marched to the Union buildings. Their chant still echoes through time. It wasn't just a protest, it was a declaration that South African womanhood would not be erased. Today, that spirit continues through art, poetry, and storytelling. Mary Sibande, Koleko Putuma, Zanele Muholi. These women and so many others carry the legacy of their ancestors. Their work isn't just art, it's resistance. But even with all the strength and what we come from, we can't ignore what's happening today. Let's rewind, shall we? You strike a woman, you strike a rock. And yet, ironically, South Africa faces one of the highest rates of gender-based violence in the world. Femicide is not just a statistic, it's a wound carried by every woman who's ever felt unsafe. Every day, women fight for safety in the very country that their mothers once marched to free. Freedom on paper doesn't always mean freedom in life. The same systems that once silenced women still echo in the courts, in the streets, and in the silence that follows another last name. Now, the topic discussed of gender roles and the effects this may have on femicide, obviously true but not absolute to the topic. This discussion only merely scratches the surface of what has caused this unruly femicide. But if we're so called aware of such issues, why do we continue to see so many names on newspapers? Why femicide isn't changing? Awareness doesn't dismantle patriarchy. Knowing the problem doesn't equal changing the system. Harmful gender norms and male entitlement still dominate South Africa till today. We see it in who is governing, we see it in our leaderships and patriarchal systems at home. Weak enforcement of laws, police mishandling cases, courts delaying justice or letting perpetrators walk free, and protection orders aren't merely enforced. One cannot deny that cultural norms that excuse male behavior has heavily affected this movement. Boys are raised to be dominant and girls to be accommodating. Violence used to discipline or control women and an emotional suppression in men is celebrated. Perhaps one of the gruesome effects of apartheid in South Africa is trauma, poverty, and instability. High employment, alcohol abuse, childhood trauma and absent fathers, and violence being normalized in many households and communities are still held till this day. Femicide, framed as a women's issue, is also one of the talking points in which men feel they do not need to be held accountable as the primary perpetrators. In fact, it's women who are told to protect themselves. Low emotional literacy, poor conflict resolution skills, and an inability to handle rejection or shame. The normalization of violence appears in the news so often that society becomes numb. People lose urgency because it feels like a routine. Change requires a long-term transformation, and that consists of reconstructing justice systems, re-educating boys and girls, changing economic and cultural conditions, and this obviously will not be done in the span of one day, but it might take decades, not even months. Realistic interventions. 1. Redefining masculinity from the ground up. Evidence shows early intervention works. Teaching boys emotional regulation, communication, consent, empathy, and non-violent conflict resolutions. Rebuilding masculinity so that strength does not equal dominance, and schools and community programs can do this and implement it. Accountability programs for men. Fixing the justice system. Empowering women economically, and a community-level intervention. Treating childhood trauma early, challenging gender norms through media and culture, strengthening shelters and victim support, and alcohol and substance regulation. In summary, femicide doesn't change with awareness, it changes when men are re-educated, systems are reformed, women are empowered, trauma is addressed, and communities take responsibility. But, of course, South African women remain the heartbeat of this nation. They organize, they create, they heal, and every time they raise their voices, They remind the world of one simple truth. To be a, to be a woman in South Africa is to be both wounded and powerful, a keeper of pain and a builder of possibility. Because womanhood here has always been more than survival. It's a revolution that never ends. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys think about this video and if you'd want more. But I do want to leave links and donations and organizations in which I think are relevant to the femicide in South Africa.